Hi, today we want to see the sequence of the activities. Now, in order to see the sequence of activity, we must have prepared the list of all the activities that we have, and we must determine the duration for each activity. Then we are ready to prepare the sequence. The sequence is determined by the project manager. He will determine which activities must be completed before ones can begin. And then we can determine the completion time of the whole project because I already know the estimated completion time of each activity. Now, the most powerful tool for estimating the project completion time is the representation of the project activities as a network. Okay, we will see how we will connect them in a network. And in order to do that, the first step in building the network is determining for each activity which activity must be completed before this activity can be begin. So we have to determine the relationship between the activities. We have to determine the immediate predecessor of each activity, and we have to determine the successor of each activity. So the immediate predecessor is the activity that will come before. The activity's successor is the activity that will come after. Okay? Now, this is our example. This is the list of all the activities. We already know their optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely, and we were able to create the completion time of the activity taking into consideration all these situations. Now, the next step is determining for each activity its predecessor. Okay, so when I look at this table here, for the first activity, activity A, we see here a dash. This means that this activity has no predecessor. So this means that this is a beginning activity. Okay, this is one of the first activities of the project. Activity B also has a dash. So we can tell that activity A and B are the first activities in this project. Then the next activities will follow. So activity C, financing the project, has a predecessor of activity A. So what do I understand? I understand that before completing activity C, I must finish activity A that comes before C. Okay? C has A as its predecessor, so C has its activity A before it that must be completed. Activity D has B as its predecessor, so B comes before D. Or B has to be completed before I begin with activity D. Activity D cannot be completed unless I finish B. With respect to activity E, you see that we have two predecessors, activity C and D. So I must finish activity C and D, both has to be completed before I can begin with activity E, because they are its predecessor. Activity F has the same predecessors, activity C and D. So I must also finish C and D before beginning with F. So you see here in this column, I can tell the relationship between activities, the sequence of the activities. I must finish A, I must finish B, I must finish, in order to begin with E, I must finish C and D. Okay, so this is the sequence of the activities. Now I know the sequence of all the activities. Now, what's the next step? We have to provide a graphical image of the project network. Okay, but in order to do that, we must first give you the rules for drawing the network. We have some rules that we need to follow. When I say that activity A must be completed before activity C can begin, this statement can be represented graphically. So I will say that this is activity A, okay? And this is activity C. We know that A is the predecessor of C. So A comes before C. So A has to be completed before I can begin with activity C. So this is how I represent this relationship, okay? both activity E and F must be complete before activity G can begin. So this is activity G, and I need to finish both E and F. So this means that even if I finish activity E and and F is still in progress, I cannot begin with activity G. So I must begin until I finish E and F in order to begin G. So G is related to both E and F. So you see that the relationship is represented in this way. Okay, I have to finish E and F both, so they have to finish at the same time in order to begin G. I can represent it in this form, or I can draw an arrow from E to G and from F to G. Now here we have the case where E and F may begin once activities C and D are complete. Okay, so both E and F, okay, should wait for the completion of activity C and D. So here is the situation where both activities E and F may be done simultaneously. Now we also need to know the following rules. Always we have to begin drawing the network with a start node, okay? And when we finish drawing all the activities, we have to draw an end node, and we start sequencing the nodes from left to right. So this is my direction. We have to proceed from left to right, okay? This means that all the predecessor activities will appear in the network to the left of their successor activities. We cannot draw backward arrows, okay? We have no loops, no backward flow sequence. Also, all nodes, except for the start and end nodes, must have at least one predecessor and one successor node, okay? All nodes has to be connected. I shouldn't see any node that's left unconnected. We do not have any orphan nodes. And we must see the path. What's the path? It is the sequence of all the activities along each direction, okay? And in our network, we might have several paths. So the path is the direction of the sequence of the activities. How do they flow in our network? So let's see how will we sequence all these activities knowing their predecessor. I know that I'm gonna start with a starting node, then the first activities will be A and B. Since they have no predecessor, this means that at the beginning of the project, we will begin with activity A and B. They will start at the same time. Then, after finishing A, I can start with C because C has A as its predecessor. Okay, now D has to be completed once I finish B. So after B, I'm gonna draw that of D. Let's see what will be the final network. So this is the final network. Here I have the starting node. Then I will have to connect the start with activity A and B. They are the starting activities of my project. C cannot be done unless I finish A. D, I cannot start with D unless I finish B. So this is my predecessor. Then I see that after I finish C and D, I can begin with E and F. Okay, after I finish E and F, I can begin with G. I must finish G in order to begin with I. Okay, G cannot begin unless I finish I and H. Okay, after I draw all the relationships and put the sequence of all the activities, I will end it with a node related to the end node. Okay, so I start with a starting node and finish my network with an ending node. This is how we draw the network of the project. Now, let's see another example. Here we have those activities and I want to represent them in a network. Okay, this is my relationship. This is the immediate predecessor of each activity. So I know that A and B, they begin at the beginning of the project. Then after A, we have C and D. and activity E has B as its predecessor, F has C, G has 3 predecessors, F, D, and E, so I must finish all these activities in order to begin with G. So let's see how will the network look. So this is my starting node. At the beginning I have A and I have B. You see, it's better to follow this representation. I know that C and D has A as its predecessor. It's better to get a separate line for each activity. So this is a line showing the relationship between A and C, and this is another line separate that shows the relation between A and D. Okay, so it's better not to have any intersections between the lines that we have and to have a separate line between the activity and the next one. Okay, so here we have G. Okay, it has 3 predecessors, F, D, and E. So this is how we draw the network of any project. Next time we will know how to create the critical path and to know the critical activities. Thank you.